Hello, this is Adrion Porter with episode number 36 of Gen X Amplified, and I am really looking forward to this great chat with a true marketing Gen X thought leader who happens to be also the former CMO of Slack, Bill Macaitis. So, are you ready? Let's do it.
I really believe the brand is the sum of every single interaction that someone has with your company. And it's all those little micro experiences that shape what the brand is. It's not your logo, your slogan. It's just all these experiences.
Welcome to Gen X Amplified, where we bring you inspirational and entertaining conversations with successful Gen X leaders and entrepreneurs.
This is the show created just for you. The powerful generation between the boomers and millennials to help you amplify your story,
Maximize your impact,
and become Gen Exceptional in business and in life.
Now, here's your host, Adrion Porter.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Amplified, the podcast and platform created for you, the powerful, influential, and exceptional generation between those brilliant boomers and magnificent millennials. And as always, I like to say our mission is to empower you with great content and conversation to help you create massive impact at work, in business, and in life. So I am going to jump right into it. This is going to be a fun one because my guest today is probably one of the most prolific marketers that have ever embraced the title CMO. He served as a go-to market executive for not one, but three of the fastest ever growing software companies, which include Salesforce, Zendesk, and most recently, Slack. You know, that not so little email replacement app that everyone loves. His passion is helping companies grow and scale their businesses using a customer-centric approach, which I, as a marketer, absolutely love. And now he is currently extending that passion to some top growing companies through his own efforts as an advisor and board member. And considering his extensive experience as a leader in the marketplace, he definitely has some valuable insights when it comes to professional growth, leadership, and overall brand building, especially as a Gen X thought leader. So please, everyone, welcome the genius of SaaS marketing, as in software as a service, not sassy, my Gen Exceptional guest, Bill Macaitis. Bill, how's it going?
Thank you so much for the kind words and for having me on, Adrian. It's a pleasure to be here.
Likewise, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for joining us on this Gen X-centric and marketing conversation. So before we get right into it, Bill, talk about a lot of your recent efforts, just want to start for our listeners, just if you can take them on a journey on your personal and professional growth. I talked a lot about kind of top line your experience with these companies, which we're going to unpack. But can you just briefly just walk us through kind of the journey that led you to marketing leadership roles at like Zendesk and Salesforce and so forth?
Yeah, I'm kind of one of those weird business nerds. I think like in fourth and fifth grade, I loved reading Fortune, Forbes, and Business Week. I've always loved business. I don't know what it's been. And I was like in Future Business Leaders of America and like high school.
Oh, cool.
And total nerded out on all that stuff. And I just always knew I wanted to be a part of, building companies and making them special.
Okay.
And so, over the course of my career, I did maybe half of it was on the B2C side, half on the B2B side. I co-founded a site with some of my friends right out of college. I didn't even know there were VCs back in that point. This was like 96. So wow. I was like, people give you $10 million and, for the business. So we had to use all of our own capital, and we definitely did not have a lot of capital coming out of college, and I think me eating mostly ramen noodles. So, I had this weird notion, which was funny back in 96. It was like, well, we actually have to grow a business and make a profit and watch your cash flow. And so,
right.
We did that, and we grew to 10 million members, and, we sold it. And, I've just been really fortunate to work for some, great brands over the course of my lifetime. Happy to kind of go into that over time.
What was the name of the site that you built with your friend?
It was Case's Ladder. So it was a gaming site, and we basically helped you do your rankings. So for tournaments, for ladders, and it was really funny because we started off and we were doing all like the games we liked, like first-person shooters,
Right.
like Doom and Quake and Command and Conquer. And we quickly realized like the only people playing that were other college kids that didn't have any money, and so we pivoted into classic card games like Hearts, Spades, Pinnacle, that was played by a slightly older demographic that actually had money and were willing to pay subscription amounts to enjoy our service. So
cool.
that pivot actually worked out pretty well.
Oh, that is great. And so you co-founded the site in 96. You say you sold it as well.
Yep.
This is that
Yep.
You sold it back when you were in college or after college?
No, this was after college.
Okay,
So, we had grown it up pretty successfully.
Right.
And like I said, we had an early SaaS membership model. So we had gold, platinum, diamond. I think we started too high on the precious metals. We didn't know we'd be adding multiple subscription services after that. But yeah, we just got it to a point and we sold it. I think it was eUniverse was the company that we sold it to.
Okay.
And then I went to work for Club Photo, which was a kind of a photo sharing site. And I was always passionate. I was taking tons of photos and kind of came in there and again put in kind of more of a SaaS subscription model and helped them grow. And then kind of the last step on the B2C side was moving over to IGN Entertainment, which was this really big kind of media gaming news site. And we just, applied a lot of the marketing principles, grew that to $100 million in revenue and sold that to News Corp.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was kind of crazy because then like my role kind of shifted to running online marketing for all these different sites. So it was like all the IGN properties, which was like AskMen, Rotten Tomatoes, IGN Entertainment, GameSpy, and then it was all these News Corp properties. So like, Fox Sports and Fox News and American Idol, and even they had acquired MySpace at one point. So it was quite a roller coaster on the B2C side, but I loved it.
That is interesting. So, and I know you have some other companies that we're going to get into some of these big top SaaS companies, but going back to, you were a business nerd, you love reading publications and seeing what's going on. You probably followed the stock prices for different organizations. And, and now as far as your deep dive into the marketing space, when did you know that you loved marketing, or how did you get into it accidentally? Did you major in it in college, or how did that work?
I majored in a very obscure major in the business college, and it was industrial distribution management. Another way to, what I think most commonly people would refer that to now is supply chain management. And I remember going into it, and they had a 100% placement rate. It was like anyone that majored in this was in such high demand that they, would always get a job. And I'm like, well, that's probably a good thing. I'd like a job coming out of college, even though I did the whole startup thing. And so, that to me, like I started going in, and it was a lot of like the logistics, supply chain, manufacturing, which I found fascinating. I did take some classes in accounting in college.
Okay.
I mean, I hated that. I was no good at it. I hated it. I was just terrible at it. And I was like, okay, I don't want to do accounting. And then here comes kind of marketing, which is more like the storyteller, building brands, price packaging. And I just loved that part of the house. Even though I consider myself kind of a data-driven marketer, but it was. I think it was by somewhat of a process of what I didn't like, and then you kind of gravitate and you just find things you like, and of course, in the early days when you're doing your own startup, you're doing everything, right? You're doing all these disciplines and marketing, doing PR, and I was doing biz dev, and you're doing pricing and packaging, and you're doing events and all these different elements of it. So, I think it started off as a generalist, but as time went on, I really just kind of embraced the marketing side of the house.
Now that is so funny, Bill, because there's a somewhat parallel story with me. Very brief. I chuckle because my undergrad degree was accounting, and honestly, I just
sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I just picked it because I thought it was easy. At that time you're 20, you're not sure what you want to do. I knew I wanted to do something possibly with business. But I picked accounting. I knew I didn't want to become a CPA. I didn't like it. And when I went to business school, I went into business school as a finance major. I wanted to do finance mostly because I was chasing the money. I wanted to work on Wall Street, be a banker. I saw a couple of movies and read a couple of publications, and I didn't really like it, but I said, I'll do it. And then one day I went to an MBA conference, and it was like a networking conference, a career conference. And I was trying to go up to all these companies and, the Merrill Lynch's and so forth, and just position myself to get an internship my first year in B school. And I just didn't feel it. It wasn't connecting. And this is a true story. I never shared this before too. I went and I said, you know what? I got to change my concentration. I went to the copy center in the hotel and I thought about all the things that I'm passionate about, and marketing kept speaking to me. And I changed my resume in the lobby in the copy center, went back upstairs to the career fair the next day. And now I was a marketing concentrator, and all of a sudden it just started flowing. It's a true story.
I love it. Oh,
it's a true, and I've never shared this. It's going to be all over the world now, but I don't care. But
you know what though? You gotta follow your heart sometimes.
That's true.
Be opportunistic, and I mean, I'd say if there's one thing that I've always tried to embrace, it's that, when those opportunities are around, you got to take them.
That is true.
And I remember, I'll tell another funny story. So when I was doing this industrial distribution management, we're telling our college stories. Like I did an internship at it was a heating, plumbing, and HVAC, heating, plumbing, air conditioning, and venting, warehouse.
Okay.
And my job was to go and put away all these parts that I had absolutely no idea what they were. And that was another thing. I was so bad at it and I had absolutely zero interest, just zero interest in it. I was like, this is and I'm sure, no offense to all the HVAC, plumbers out there and air conditioning professionals, but it was not my forte. And I didn't survive that internship very long. And one day I basically said, I'm sorry guys, this is my thing. And I went over to I think it was Computer City.
Right.
And I was like, hey, you're selling computers, you're selling software. I love this. I want to do this. And I got a job there. And so it's sometimes you just got to do that. You're not happy. You got to pivot to what you like.
That is true. And we, at that time when we could afford to do that, and you still can actually, there's a lot of pivoting that people can do even as elder or mid-career Gen Xers. But, I love what you said. You just have to sometime take a hold of those moments and just listen to your gut and your instinct and just go with it. And so speaking of pivoting, so you worked a lot on the B2C side, especially you ended off, I think, in that tenure with Fox Interactive and News Corp and IGN. So my understanding then you pivoted to the B2B space with Salesforce. Can you talk a little bit about that change and what made you go from B2C to B2B?
Yeah, so I loved the B2C side and just working with some of these iconic brands. And I mean, obviously I was a gamer growing up. I'm working with gaming companies. I'm working with these huge media publishing companies. And, we had done a lot of different marketing tactics, content marketing. We did a lot of SEO. We did a lot of media arbitrage and just helped to build them in. I think it was at the time the third largest network in the world. I forgot the unique visitors, but it was pretty big. And, I had Salesforce had reached out to me and they said, hey, we're looking to bring in this, marketing leader, someone that can kind of transform our online operations. And, what I'd later heard was Mark, one of the great things on Mark Benioff, leader of Salesforce, who's just a tremendous individual, philanthropist. But he had said, he's I don't want to do it the traditional way. I don't want to, just hire a, dusty old B2B marketing playbook. And so he was looking for someone that had more consumer DNA and kind of coming from the B2C side and just kind of using a lot of different innovative tactics, or at least as they would be compared to on the B2B side. It just seemed like a great match. And I loved Salesforce at that time because here was a company I've always loved innovating and disrupting. And you got to remember, at the time, before SaaS, Salesforce was the first one that came out and everything was on-prem, massive, expensive deals. You literally had to ship the disk, install it on your own servers and hardware, and they charge you for all this crazy maintenance. It was just the worst possible model. And he kind of comes up with this model of, what if business software was as easy as Amazon and, that you just logged in and you started using it. And I fundamentally, I love that. I believed in that vision and I joined them, relatively early in their growth process. So it was absolutely amazing. What shocked me when I started getting into the B2B side more was just, again, it was so many companies were just using really old playbooks. It was very dominated around send press releases, run conferences, find the CIO, buy them steak dinners using an outbound sales model, and sell them a product, which ironically they would never use. Like that was just the model back then. The CIO would buy the software and hand it off to some functional team. And it didn't even matter if the functional team used it, if they were happy with it. It just was like, all right, was the CIO happy and are they buying our software? So, I think that space was ripe for disruption. And, the work that Salesforce made it possible just for this entire SaaS ecosystem to kind of trust the model, which at the time a lot of people didn't. It was just very like, what, you're going to take my most valuable customer data and you're going to put it in the cloud, quote, air quotes, like, what is this place? And are you crazy? And you guys are going to get hacked and it's all going to, leak out. And so it took a long time, I think, to build that trust up.
Wow, that's good. And you literally, in my understanding, you built a marketing team pretty much, or you said you were there on the early stages.
Yeah, well, when I came in, I came in on the online marketing side, and it was like a lot of B2B companies. There wasn't an online marketing team, right? And so we built up a lot of the disciplines around. We had like a conversion rate marketing team. We built up like a web analytics team. We built up kind of the web production side. We built up. And eventually, like as I was there, I started taking on more functions. I took on like program management. I took on the marketing ops, the analytics, and the advertising, the demand gen, the multivariate testing. I just wanted to bring all these best in breed disciplines to help build a lead engine. Because I mean, Salesforce, we had a lot of sales folks, right? And that was a lot of mouths to feed, and we needed to do it in a new way. And so I wanted to build a really sophisticated engine that would help that company grow and scale. And, it was a ton of fun along the way because we got to do a lot of things that most traditional B2B companies didn't do. And Mark was super supportive of that.
That's awesome. And I love, and you said that, Mark as a leader, he was very purpose driven as well, which I'm sure helped a lot of the growth, because I'm also an advocate for companies that are really, built on purpose as opposed to just monetary growth. So I'm sure that helped the culture and helped you do your job much better as well.
Oh, he was fantastic. I mean, just what an incredible leader, completely, as you said, mission driven. Wanted to disrupt this space. And he was a personality. I mean, as a marketer, you want to have a CEO that has some personality, right? That's not afraid to take a stand and to be a little bit ahead of his time. And certainly, the PR side of the house was a huge motion for us because he was able to not only like have the personality and the viewpoints, but he was willing to devote himself to building relationships with the press. And my wife at that time, she did a lot of high-tech PR, and it was always kind of funny because I would feel for her because these, CEOs of these tech companies would be like, well, why aren't we on the front page of the Wall Street Journal? And the thing is, like, Mark, what a lot of people didn't realize is that he would spend the time to meet with all the reporters, to build a relationship with them, to answer their questions. And sometimes I think CEOs just expect like this coverage to magically happen, and it's the agency that does everything. And a lot of people don't realize, like, no, it's actually more the CEO themselves, like how much time they're willing to actually devote to building those relationships and thinking about what you're going to say and how it's going to be covered. And, there's a lot of like art that goes into it. And Mark was always devoted towards that.
That's awesome. So from Mark and Salesforce, you took a stint at Zendesk as the CMO, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I've been with Salesforce about 4 years, and, I absolutely love the company, had no issues. It just was one of those rare opportunities where, Zendesk came along, and I knew one of the venture capitalists that had invested in it, and they had been moving up through the SMB and were really just disrupting that space. And again, you see this now, like all these verticals that have just been completely disrupted. But, for a long time, customer support, had every company uses customer support, yet the solutions were just horrible. And I mean, and you feel that as a consumer, right? Because a lot of times you're seeing the byproduct of the software that the support teams are using, and you have to repeat information and no one's tracking. You're going through phone trees and you're on hold forever. And so I just thought it was an amazing opportunity. The thing that I also liked about it was they didn't really have a marketing team. There were just a couple people there. And I got to come in and basically have a whiteboard on how you could think about building a marketing team from the ground up, from scratch. And that was really appealing to me because, again, I loved being disruptive and thinking about, all these more modern edge type teams like growth teams and conversion rate marketing teams and having a display or retargeting team and, kind of getting back from the old world of B2B where they just wouldn't have those teams. They didn't even exist. And so it was a lot of fun building that up. And also I think, Zendesk for me represented an amazing opportunity to, and I know this is a huge part of your DNA, is like building a brand. I know it's a lot about building personal brand, but this was like, I've always thought B2B companies take this really conservative, almost like lifeless, sterilous approach to their brand. And if you look at so many B2B software companies, like it's a white background, black text.
Yes.
There's the applications are just like lifeless. Like every button is like accept, okay, next. Would you like to process this order? Yes, no. And here's a company that I thought we had an opportunity to tell a great story, but also infuse our brand. And so we used a lot of colors, we used a lot of emotion, we used a lot of iconography, and it was just a ton of fun about thinking about that. Of people have and can have an emotional connection to the software that they use, and that was just very different than I think the status quo operating for a lot of B2B companies at that time.
Wow, this is great. And I'm noticing the theme here, which is really just going to really blow it out the waters. Now, the theme with you and your career growth, Bill, is disruption. You've been part of a lot of disrupting companies and companies that not just focus on iteration, but innovation. And this next organization is probably one of the kings of disruption, Slack. You joined Slack early on as a marketer. Can you talk just briefly about that tenure, when you joined, and what did you do? Because with my understanding, this literally held the title. It may still hold the title. It's the fastest growing business software app of all time. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, most of the metrics that I've looked at, fastest company to reach 100 million in ARR, fastest company to reach 200 million in ARR, just literally the number of years and months it took for each one of those. So yeah, it was an absolute honor to be part of that growth story. I joined pretty early. I was literally, I think, the first marketer there, and I joined as CMO. I think it was around like employee number 50.
Wow.
And at that point, most of the hires were just, in development and the design and the product management side. So I kind of came in, and again, that really attracted it to me was the opportunity to have a blank slate to build these teams from the ground up. And pretty quickly, my role kind of evolved to more of a CRO or even a CCO. So I ran all the customer-facing teams, the marketing, the sales, success support, and that was pretty uncommon. And what it allowed us to do was really think about that end customer experience. I talked about before, like B2B and like the old way of doing things. I felt it was kind of a broken journey for the buyer, because if you've ever bought B2B software, a lot of times it's not a fun experience. I mean, you're trying to research companies and everything's locked behind forms. You can't really find out information.
Right.
When you do finally fill out the form, you get contacted by sales before you're even ready. The support team, it's hard to find where you even get support and get responses 2 weeks later.
Right.
And success is like, you have 8 people selling it to you, but when they finally close the deal, everyone runs away, and you're issued like 1/100th of a success person to quote unquote make you successful. So I just always thought like it was odd, like all those teams were being optimized around very short-term metrics, whether it be leads, whether it just be closed business, whether it be, success, how much more did they sell to, or support, how much little did they spend, right? Because they're a cost center. And it was a great opportunity to really reinvent what those teams, the purpose they share, how you can drive growth, but do it in a very customer-centric way. And again, reinvent the playbook of how you go to market. And we just really tried to innovate and experiment. We did a lot of paid media. We did a lot of word of mouth. We did a lot of evangelism. We did a lot of content marketing. We did a lot of PR at Slack, a lot of pricing and packaging. It just was, a really fun opportunity to really innovate and disrupt in that space.
Yeah, I absolutely love the brand and the app. And again, and I mentioned this earlier, and you alluded to it. I'm a brand guy and also a marketer. But one of the things that I noticed at Slack, and actually a user of Slack, I first started using Slack during my stint at the previous company I was at iDisciple. We used email, we used Microsoft Office, but we had started probably after my first 9 months there, a couple of teams started to use Slack, and we set up Slack within the office, and it was great. We moved away from it a little bit because we started to use Teams, but we started to do a hybrid, and there were some teams that were using Microsoft Teams and some that were using Slack. And I found it to be enjoyable because, number one, as a brand guy, I loved the story that was being told, not just visually, but viscerally. And I'm sure you obviously had a lot to do with that. Even if you just look at the icons, I mean, there's some color and some depth to it with the multiple colors and the little hashtag. And as you said, compared to other B2B companies and visual elements and expression, it stands out a lot more. So how did you and your team catapult that growth so fast? And you mentioned you did a lot of different performance marketing initiatives, content marketing, which I'm sure had a lot to do with it. But can you talk a little bit about this customer-centric, data-driven approaches that you did? Because I know that as myself, you were a fan of NPS. I know those one things that you did. Can you talk a little bit about just how you got your team on board to really focus on not only growing this fast, but, and this is key, but also balancing the challenge of delivering a clear strategic brand while managing the speed to market? Because sometimes there are those demands and can be incongruent. Like you have upper management or colleagues or even the market saying, hey, go to market. But then you're like, I want to build a brand and I can't build a brand in a week. It has to be strategic.
I mean, it's a great question. So I've always personally believed that lead gen is short-term leads and building a brand is long-term leads. Okay. And there's probably a place for both of them. But I do think if you kind of get caught on the hamster wheel of only focusing on next quarter's leads, you don't have that opportunity to differentiate yourself in the long run. And, building a brand, there's certainly some things that, require capital behind that, but a lot of things I don't think they do. I really believe the brand is a sum of every single interaction that someone has with your company. And it's all those little micro experiences that shape what the brand is. It's not your logo, your slogan. It's just all these experiences. So, one experience I think that's really easy and really cheap, and I advise a lot of companies now is, like I said, like you mentioned it, like the color palette, but just don't be afraid to stand out a little bit.
Right.
You have to understand no matter what company you are, if you're having success, there's a VC or many VCs that have funded 10 other copycats right behind you that are all going to be, ankle biters trying to take on this category that maybe you developed or maybe you're disrupting. And again, you don't need to play it safe in B2B and just choose a boring brand. Like, maybe think about a mascot. We had kind of Booty at Zendesk. We eventually kind of phased that out as we went public, but people really loved him, and it was like the emotion, the smile, the color. It was like love your help desk. That was just a very kind of emotional, friendly tone. And I think when we approached Slack, we wanted to stand out. And so if you look at that plaid tartan color wheel, I mean, it was just, it was pretty bold. There was a lot of things out there.
Yes.
But I think as well, even kind of beyond the visual identity, we spent a lot of time on the editorial tone and voice. And if you've used Slack, you will see things like, hey, there's a loading message of the day. And, that could have easily been an hourglass. Because
that is true, yes.
Sometimes Slack took a little while to load up, right?
I remember.
It was like, hey,
I like that. Yeah, I remember seeing that often, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, let's just, say something fun or witty. And so, we did try to codify that pretty early in our days. Like, what is our editorial tone of voice? I mean, we want it to be human and fun and whimsical and never use an acronym. Which, by the way, if you like, that's a good challenge. Go to a B2B site and just see how many acronyms are listed and how many buzzwords are put in there, right? And it's so funny. Like every company is the next generation platform disrupting XYZ, and you're still like, wait, what do you do? Like, what you do? Wow. So we spent a lot of time there. I certainly think, like, as you said, like I was just a huge, passionate believer in this customer-centric experience. And it's one of the reasons I actually joined Slack when have all the respect in the world for Stuart, another fantastic leader, disruptor. And we sat down and we had this initial conversation when we were, talking about me coming over. And he told a story of when he goes into a restaurant, and it really resonated with me because I kind of the same thing. And he's like, when you think about when I have my experience going to a restaurant, it's shaped by all these micro experiences. Like when let's say you drove there, like how prompt was the valet? Were they nice? Did they take care of your car when you go in? And there's kind of the host or the hostess? Like, do they, are they friendly with you? Like, is it too hot or is it too cold? How is the lighting? Once you start working with your server, let's say they're out somewhere else, and another server sees that you need something, will they help you out? Maybe fill out your water, and obviously there's the food, but I think it's this idea that I think sometimes in software people think like for restaurants it's the software itself is the food and that's all that matters.
Right.
And I guess maybe for some people, that's all you really care about. But I think a lot of people, consciously or subconsciously, were influenced by all these different experiences. And so I kind of knew right away that, like, wow, this is a person that really understands the customer journey, the experience. And, pretty quickly we, went all on board with it. We were extensively tracking Net Promoter Score. There's a lot of great companies out there, too, that will help you. And we found one that actually would pipe those NPS responses in real time into different Slack channels. We could mention people that were actually working on the account, so an AE or a CSM.
Yes.
The data was transparent. We would always know like what were the top 3 reasons people liked us and the top 3 reasons that they didn't like us. And that was great for our product roadmap. We did a lot of transactional CSAT. So one of the things we did different, and again, I was trying to disrupt. I think sales teams historically were only judged on how much they sold, which in theory, kind of, all right, when in sales, it's, how much did you sell? But again, my experience is just buying a lot of software was, well, that kind of incentivized you to oversell, overpromise, put you on plans you didn't need, sell you more seats than you needed. Because, and again, there's nothing that the salesperson was just working towards whatever metric they were given because they wanted to do a good job. And so we tried doing things where we would do like transactional CSAT surveys after a salesperson was working with the account and they closed the deal. We would go back to those buyers and go like, hey, you're working with Jenny or A, like how responsive was she and how helpful was she? How knowledgeable was she? How courteous was she? And we wanted to try to get more, again, like what was that actual sales experience like for you as a buyer?
Right.
And, we really tried to implement that at every single level within support, success, marketing, sales. We were always kind of measuring the experience. And I think there's a lot of different reasons why, Slack kind of took off. A lot of us right place, right time. The messaging services, even now, I don't know if people realize like there are more people on messaging services than there are on social networks. Like messaging is taken off everywhere, right? And it had already run its course in B2C. Like I knew it was going to happen in B2B. Right. And even though we're still in the infancy, because B2B always moves a little slower, like it was going to happen. But I do think a lot of it came down to, because we get asked that question, like, what do you think, really propelled Slack? And I do think it was just this insane customer centricity where everything we did was around that. Like, and that those values, like the values we had at Slack were around courtesy and empathy and craftsmanship. And like, trust me, you would not hear those values at like an Oracle or you'd hear like dominate and destroy and, capture market share. And so those values really influenced a lot of our strategy. So for instance, in pricing and packaging, we tried to be innovative and disruptive. So a couple of things we did differently there was when you started using Slack, we only charged you if you were actually using it. So we would give credits and refunds back if you stopped using it. And that was very non-standard. Even in SaaS, it was like, well, you pay and you paid these users for the full year, whether you use it or not, right? And so we had these internal metrics around daily active users that was really important for us, and Net Promoter Score.
Love it.
And it was this idea of, and I would always tell my team, I'm like, look, guys, your goal in life is not just to get people to buy from us; it's to get them to recommend us.
Right.
And if that's the bar, and I think it's a harder bar, you really go back and you go, wow, like, what are we doing in marketing? Are we just gating everything? Are we annoying people? Are we sending them like 100 emails? Or in sales, are we overselling or overpromising? And support, like, are we being proactive and helping them out in multiple channels and getting responses back in 3 minutes? I mean, it's, you rethink a lot of what you're doing if the end goal is to get that recommend. And having then that organic growth in combination with a lot of the paid media and all these different tactics we were doing, I think that just gave us that force multiplier where, a normal growing company all of a sudden was now into hyper growth mode. And it was just growing at a monumental eclipse.
Well, it did. I mean, a lot of the principles that you outlined, I'm sure, definitely contributed to that crazy, awesome K factor that you guys had at Slack. I love the fact that you brought up the brand values. I'm a big proponent of, your brand being more than, again, as you said, just your logo. It's a combination of your purpose, your positioning, your values, and the values of empathy and craftsmanship. You're right. You really don't hear those that often aligned with B2B companies, but it manifested itself in everything that you do. And I'm sure it helped with just that crazy growth factor of the company. And speaking of growth and the principles from Slack, you are now you have your own advisory company, correct? You're working with companies now as an advisor. Are you using a lot of those principles and tools to help other startups?
Yeah, it was kind of a fun new chapter in my life where I'd been doing operator roles for about 20 years, and just been fortunate, had a number of exits, and was kind of deciding, what do I do next, right? And it was like, do I kind of go down the VC path, or do I stay in operator roles, or do I move kind of advisor/board roles? And and I just decided on the latter. I love this space too much. I didn't want to, retire and just be on a beach all day or play golf. I'm a little too young for that. So
nothing wrong with that. But
yeah, nothing wrong with that. I do enjoy that sometimes. But I love this space. And so for me, an advisor or independent board member, kind of depends on the company, was an opportunity for me to kind of just share a lot of those learnings of what helped create these companies, what helped propel them. And so, I work with a select group of companies. I'll help out from anything from their go-to-market strategies, thinking about customer centricity, thinking about like reinventing what their marketing go-to-market looks like. I'll help them with organizational design, hiring. I'll help them with thinking about what is a modern marketing tech stack, and how can you have the software that's going to help you scale as opposed to just throwing people at it, and just try to be like a Sherpa for them. Someone that's kind of been there and can help guide them down that path and build something amazing. And I love working with mission-driven founders. I love working with ones that are creating new categories and that are disrupting, and that have an open mind on how to do that and want to do it in a better way, a customer-centric way.
Well, that's great. I love that when you decided to pivot recently, you still had your toe in the water of the space, at least the industry, because your bread was buttered in that space, B2B, SaaS, but at the same time, I guess you want to spend more time with your family and like you said, not sit on the beach drinking your favorite drink all the time, but being able to do that if you wanted to. But I love your focus, and I like the fact that you love working with purpose-driven companies. A lot of these startups, and I think that's part of the puzzle that is missed, because they're trying to go to market very fast and get to IPO or get to whatever. And a lot of times that's missing. And it's not, for some, there's nothing wrong with that. But I do think the companies that last, that are, on the Mount Rushmore of companies at the end of the day, are really focused on having a holistic approach when it comes to being mission driven and also revenue driven as well. And you definitely have a lot of wins, great track record, a lot of wins on the board. And I'm sure the companies that you're working with, can you share a couple of companies that either you're on the board of or helping, if you can?
Yeah, so some of them it's a little top secret.
Yeah,
so
totally understand.
I can't go into all of them there, but there are a couple that I really enjoy working with. I signed up recently with a company called Go Cardless. They do kind of direct debit, very very popular in kind of Europe and the UK. Love working with them. Hotjar is another one that's fantastic. They kind of do heat maps. Surveys, they kind of voice of customer, incredible company. And, like you said, I love the ones that are just transforming an industry, and I'll work with, early stage companies all the way up to, pre-IPO and even public if it's right. For me, it's more about, again, if I really enjoy working with this company, they're customer centric, they want to kind of have an incredibly modern approach to how they approach going to go to market. And, for me, it's just a ton of fun.
Well, actually, which is actually a good transition to this next topic I want to unpack. And I saw something recently, it was a press release, so it's public information, that you also either joined the board or work with 15Five.
Oh, yeah, 15Five, love them.
Yeah, so I was very interested in that because, number one, if I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, is my understanding, they basically are a workforce application. They help people, organizations and individuals give feedback to their employees in a more efficient manner, which is really great when it comes to future of work and Gen Xers, millennials, and boomers, and just overall in the workforce. Can you talk a little bit just briefly about 15Five? And then I do want to get your insights just on the opportunities for Gen Xers in leadership in managing multi-generational workforce?
Yeah, great question. So, 15.5, I mean, I think an easy way to think about it is they're in the people management space.
Okay.
And for anyone that's worked out there, I know myself included, we've all worked for managers and leaders that we loved and that were inspiring and that cared about our career and that were mentors to us. And I think we've all probably had our share of bad people managers that were didn't maybe care about it and didn't spend the time to set goals and do one-on-ones and help you out. And so I was always personally frustrated with how I saw in some organizations you just would have someone that was maybe great as an IC would get promoted, or maybe they were political, but they were just the worst people manager around. And I loved 15.5 because, again, very mission-driven company. It was this idea of around how can we help empower better leaders and better individuals and do things like, continuous feedback and running one-on-ones and setting goals. And again, having this on a very easy-to-use SaaS platform where you can access it and just get started right away. And so that's just something I've always been pretty passionate about. And I think leadership and being a manager is hard because there just isn't a lot of information on that. A lot of people get promoted up and just, don't have a lot of resources and help with it. And so, I've always respected, some of the CEOs I've worked with and them being great leaders and helping me out and inspiring me and teaching me. And I've just always tried to play that back for my team however I can to help them out. And ultimately, I think, you don't get judged as an individual. You get judged by what your team does. And any success I've had has all been just by the team. I've been so fortunate to work with incredible people who I've learned so much from, and that, I love them both as individuals, as friends, and just as, the amazing impact that they've made. Kind of touching on the second part of your question, the kind of like, hey, I'm Gen X and there's a lot of different gens and millennials and dealing with it. I don't know. It's interesting. I think there is, some research out there. I've got a little 8-year-old girl, and I think our current generation, we do focus on. There's a lot of praise, and everything they're doing great, and you always get a medal for everything, and I'm sure there are some byproducts of that, right? Different generations maybe need a little bit more affirmation or want more feedback on how they're doing.
Yeah, so, I have a 9-year-old. I have a 9-year-old son too. So they're both. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. This is more of a parallel, but I think you like it since we're talking about branding and also kind of these different generations. So when I worked with Salesforce, Mikkel, who's a phenomenal CEO, we were once really doing these deep dives on how like all our segments were different and unique, and all the verticals were different, and that can get into a little bit of a rabbit hole because you're saying, all right, well, here's why everyone's different in 10 different ways and 10 different categories, 10 different personas. That means that's a lot of work as a marketer too. That means you have to create 10 different pages, 10 different assets, and he was like, well, why don't you think about it not just how everyone is different, but what is that one common fiber that unites them all? Yes. And it's a little bit harder to figure out, well, how is everyone similar? But I do think that's always resonated with me. And I think in the same way, yes, like these generations are very different in the experiences had and how we were brought up. And, my mom was like, hey, just get outside after school and play, right? And I'm running around the neighborhood and field and
riding
I'm going
bikes
to the store by myself. I mean, like the current generation, we would have passed out if we would let our 8 and 9-year-olds do that.
And we did not wear a helmet when we rode our dirt bikes.
Exactly. No, I mean, it's really weird now because I'm helping my daughter. She's now riding her bike, and she's like, do you have your helmet, Dad? I'm like, oh yeah, like I don't wear my helmet. It's very weird for me riding my bike with a helmet because I never did. But anyways, but I do think like you can kind of look at that from a management perspective of like what's the common fiber. And I found, hey, no matter who you are, people want to be cared for.
That's true. Yes.
They want to have feedback. They want to know how they're doing. They want to be given clear goals. They want you to help them say like, hey, here's what we're going after, but don't micromanage them. Like support them and let them choose how they're going to get there. And I feel like those are common bonds that unite everyone. And I remember I would listen to, there's so many great podcasts out there, including your own. There's another one that I love called Manager Tools, and it just talks about all these different ways to be a better manager, better leader. And I remember one lesson they had on there was, you should always know who that significant other is for, your employee or for your directs, right? And because that's why people work, is for their family and their spouses and their significant others and their kids. And when you just have this nameless, faceless, you're just a cog in the machine. I really think that destroys relationships. So that's the approach I've always taken, is just try to, no matter what the generation, to be there for them, run the regular one-on-ones, and just be there to help them support and grow their career.
I think that is a great approach too, and I appreciate that. I tell people a lot of times, not only on this podcast, but in the work that I do, focused on not just the brand development work I do, but a lot of the personal development and Gen X work that I'm really my personal mission and passion is that my lens is really about empowering this generation. So a lot of times you have the dialogue when it comes to generational theory is the characteristics or the stereotypes or belittling, and I never approach it in that way, because to your point, everyone's an individual. Yes, and I strongly believe that we are shaped by our experiences, and obviously my great grandparents have different thoughts and insights on things than I do because of the world we were shaped in, but there are still commonalities as individuals. And so my mission is really empowering and amplifying people that are now approaching positions of leadership in their lives, in their personal life, in their professional life, Gen Xers, because you don't hear a lot about this generation in the media. You don't see and read and listen to a lot of empowering content focused on them specifically, because, we are a smaller cohort, but right now is a key time for them. So I'm about building up Gen Xers and not tearing down millennials and boomers. But when it comes to the future of work and workplace, it's important to look at your teams as individuals. And as a Gen Xer, if you are in upper management or mid management, more than likely, if you're mid 30s to 50s, you have to understand that the millennials and even the Gen Zs that are now coming into the workforce after college in this day and age, we have this 4 to 5 generational workforce now. You have to understand people's desires and wants and needs and what's going to motivate them to perform their best, because at the end of the day, when they win, you win and the company wins. And so I love that that's your approach when it comes to this multi-generational lens and leadership, which is really appreciative. And just thinking about your career growth, you've had to build a lot of teams, from scratch, from small teams. I'm sure you've had boomers on your teams, fellow Gen Xers, millennials, especially in these latter stages. And your company would not have achieved the success, I'm sure, that it had if you did not infuse a sense of empowerment, collaboration, understanding, if you are quote unquote a millennial, what is it going to take to motivate your best output? If you are a Gen Xer that's feeling squeezed or feeling like their job is in jeopardy, what is it going to take for you to feel confident or get the tools that you need to develop? So I really appreciate your insight on that.
Thanks. Yeah. It's, any team, it's the people. It's always the people. And and you're right. You just see this now. And even people are saying the workplace much longer, where you do have 5-6 different generations of people trying to work together. So I think that's an incredibly valuable service that you provide. And, just thinking about how we can work together, it's huge.
Yeah. So speaking of insight, so this last question is a fun insight one that I cannot wait to hear from you, especially being a brand guy. So here's a question that I do ask all of my guests on GXA. And so here it is. So if there was a song that would play every time you enter a room or when you walk down the street that matches your story and the brand of Bill Macaitis, what song would that be? Basically, what would be your own personal theme song?
Oh, man. So this is so embarrassing. My daughter would love it, but so I love the fight song. I think it was by Katy Perry. It was funny. I looked it up, and I think it actually says Rachel Platten. But it is a fantastic song. It's a motivating song. It kind of gets me up and going in the morning, and I'll play it when I'm doing my workouts. And my wife absolutely laughs at me that I'm playing some teeny bop. Definitely not my Gen X type of music for that. But hey, it's fantastic. It's uplifting. It moves me on. It's a So yeah, it's a fight song, and it's by Katy Perry or Rachel Platten. I'm not sure. Maybe Rachel Platten wrote it. See, that's just how disconnected I am from that generation. I don't even know who's actually singing it behind it.
That is quite all right. This is my fight song. Take back my life.
Yes, there you
I'm
go.
all right. My power's turned on, and this is all about unlocking the power of Gen Xers. So that's a great. It's a great choice. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I love it. Bill, this was an awesome conversation. You definitely unpacked a lot of value bombs, a lot of nuggets for people that are listening in, especially mid-career professionals, Gen Xers, but even if millennials, boomers, whomever are listening in, if there are marketers or business leaders, a lot of great tools when it comes to building teams, really looking at user customer centric approach first. And what I do now too is another one of my passions is primarily my passion is using the principles that I've obtained as a marketer and professional over my 20 years and applying them at the individual levels when it comes to brand building. And so a lot of the principles that you've outlined can be applied to if you're trying to build a personal brand or develop personal growth. Understanding your audience, understanding your brand, understanding how you can better tell a story is very key. So, the success that you've had with Salesforce, Slack, Zendesk, your current work with these other companies, I think this will be a very valuable conversation and an episode that people should listen to more often. Bill, how can people just keep in touch with what you have going on and just kind of keep up with your journey?
Yeah. So first off, thank you so much for having me on, Adrian. It's been an absolute pleasure. And if you are interested in staying connected, you can always follow me on Twitter. LinkedIn is actually where I do a lot of my business. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about Macaitis Advisory, you can go there and reach out to me. And just excited to stay in touch with everyone.
Love it. Love it. Well, thanks so much, Bill. This has been great. You have been Gen exceptional guest, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of your progress on the marketplace.
Thank you again so much for having me, Adrian. It's been an awesome conversation.
Take care. That was Bill Macaitis, former CMO at Slack and current strategic advisor for growth companies and organizations. So as always, I want to thank you for listening in to this episode. Now remember, if you want to find out more about Gen X Amplified, read the show notes for not only this episode, but for all of our episodes. You can go over to genxamplified.com. And better yet, if you want to listen and be empowered while you're on the go, which is really the great benefit of podcasting, definitely go and subscribe to the show through the Apple Podcast app if you're an Apple person, or if you're an Android person, you can go over to the Google Podcast app. Or we're also on Spotify, we're on Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, Overcast, pretty much all of the podcast destinations. But either way, you can definitely find us. And while you're over there, especially in iTunes, definitely give us a rating and review if you have found value in this content. We really appreciate it. Now, you can also check me out at adrionporter.com to get even more content, to stay in touch with me, join the email list, I should say, so you can find out when new episodes will be made available, and also just get really good, empowering content from me. That will be really great. And you can also, while you're there, just learn more about my mission, which is to help and empower my generation, Gen Xers, maximize our impact at work, in business, and in life. So once again, I'm Adrion Porter, and you've been listening to Gen X Amplified. Remember, it's more than a podcast. It's a movement.